have to have that to be competitive and have fun and have a blast. And it was really, really cool to hear. And that was just testimony after testimony after testimony. And I'll just tell you this: this camp, I was more refreshed and restored in my own heart and in my own mind. Because usually camping, yes, I was physically exhausted. I mean, the last day when you guys saw me Sunday morning, I literally had like 3 hours of sleep. And, and it was just, I'm telling you, that was such a restoring time. So thank you for everyone who prayed. It was obvious and it was evident. And then thank you to everyone that gave, because we were able to do something for these kids and give them a break and give them a separation, and so they can hear God's voice. And it was awesome. So thank you guys so much. Give yourself a round of applause for that. Thank you. Thank you to all the leaders and everything. But anyways, as you guys know, quick announcements. We have house groups kicking back off, youth house groups. So this Wednesday, which is awesome, at our house, 6 to 8. And then we also have Park Day at Swan Lake. If you guys want to join, anyone that has kids, if you don't have kids, you just want to hang out, play frisbee golf, or do whatever, it's going to be at Swan Lake this Wednesday night from 6 to 8 as well. So the parents that drop off their kids, you have something to do. And so from our house, and so would love to see you guys back at the house groups and at the parks. But I am preaching on, I guess, the last parable, I think, which is the mustard seed. I think that's what Pastor said when he gave me this message, who told me about 2-3 weeks before camp. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to think about that after camp. It's like I got a lot going on. So I was like, but anyway, so that's what happened. But I did ask, I was like, hey, give me highlights throughout the way. If your kid ever talked about a story about mustard after curfew, if you have a youth kid, I'm sorry, but not really. This might be the reason why we had mustard in the night game, because Pastor said you're teaching about the mustard seed. So I don't know. Maybe that's where it was planted. But today, I just want to let you guys know, today's a simple message. It's a very simple message, and it's going to be a short message. It's going to be the shortest message I've ever preached. So you guys can hold me to that. If you guys want to time me, go for it. But anyways, no, today's mustard seed, I just want to talk about something so simple and so practical that I think that it can connect with all of us here personally. While I was praying this last week and I was pacing throughout the aisles and I was asking God, what is it that you want me to say? Because the thing is, I don't get the opportunity to preach to you very often. I teach the kids, I teach the youth. I'm around them. I do life with them. I don't do life with you as much. I'm not here every Sunday up here listening, teaching, seeking what God has for you. So when I do have the opportunity and I'm asking God, okay, what is it? I don't want to just get in the routine of okay, here's a good word now, pat yourself out the door and have a good week. And I was really wrestling. I was okay, God, what is your presence wanting to do in someone's heart, on someone online or anything like that? I want to do something different. I felt that. But I'm like, how unique can you make the message of the mustard seed? It's pretty self-explanatory. And even when Jesus explains about the mustard seed and how he brings it up, and we're going to turn our Bibles to Matthew chapter 13, where his when he first says something about it. Starting in verse 31, and it says, here is another illustration Jesus used. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted in a field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of garden plants. It grows into a tree, and the birds come and make nests in its branches. So when I was thinking about this, I was like, man, I want to make this grandiose thing. And I was like, oh, man, what about the other one? Matthew 17:20. Oh, yeah, that one's a really good one. It's like you don't have enough faith, Jesus told them. I tell you the truth, if you have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move, and nothing would be impossible. That would be the cliche in my mind, and that's what God was saying. No, I don't want you to preach about moving mountains. I don't want you to preach on that because, yeah, that's a hype one. It's an exciting one, and it's a true one. But God's like, no, simpler. Let's bring it down. So going back to Matthew chapter 13, it's amazing to me because it's in verse 32 that he actually explains something that's so vast and so large that even our own brain, and I don't know if you've ever done this with some of your friends where you just have talked about what heaven's going to be like. Like, what is the kingdom of heaven going to be like one day? Somewhere that we're going to spend eternity one day. And I'm thinking about, like, we talked about, like, oh, we're going to do this, maybe we'll do that. And yes, there's stuff in the scriptures that talks about certain highlights and certain things that we will be able to do. And it gives us, like, basically some hints and some direction. But in essence, this is Jesus explaining with one thing, an item, a seed, what the kingdom of heaven is. And I'm just like, whoa, you just put heaven literally in a seed. You put that in such a small thing. And I was like, this is simple. And God's like, I need you to speak simply this week. So I hope that this message to you is simple, practical, and applies to you. And I think it can apply to all of us today. So we're going to go into what is the mustard seed. Let's just start from there at the very beginning. Mustard seed is about 1 to 2 millimeters in size. Pretty wild. It's like, Jesus, why aren't you thinking a little too small when it comes to the kingdom of heaven? Aren't you thinking a little too small? Don't you need to be bigger because it's so big? We got to, it's like the show me stay of, like, it's everything's bigger in Texas mentality. So we got to get the biggest thing ever and explain the kingdom of heaven because we got to show off, man. We got to flex. And God's like, no. The start of it is this. And I was like, how do I explain this to an individual? That it is such a small thing, but yet it can grow into the largest of things. So this is what, today Jesus is directing our focus not at the quantity or strength of our faith, but to the object of our faith, the specifics. So what is faith? The Bible explains and defines the faith as a self-emptied, dependent assurance in God's character and promises. And we can read in Hebrews 11:1 where it says, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. So, what am I going to talk about? Well, let me pray first. God, thank you so much that you have a word for an individual in this room. And I just pray that their hearts are open and their mind can see and hear what you have for them today. Amen. First step. It is that I believe in the mustard seed steps is that you need to plant. What do you mean by that, DJ? What do you mean by you need to plant? What I mean by you need to plant is this. Just like that picture with the mustard seed. A lot of times we love to talk about faith. A lot of times we know a lot about faith. We can tell you everything about what you need and what you need to do with faith, but what do we not do a lot of times, which requires work? Is plan it, which requires you letting go of it. In order for it to grow, you have to let it go. That's what you have to do. And so you're like, DJ, what do I do in that way? So how do I practice faith? Because, I want to talk about it. I want to believe that I have it, but the reality of it, like, how do I actually know that I put it in the ground? How do I know I did something? A lot of times in faith, we talk about, like, things that we don't see, and a lot of times we have to take a step of faith, right? In direction that we don't know, right? That's what we have to do. So what is a practical day-to-day lifestyle that you have to do to actually take a step of faith and plant it? Something would be something like this. Okay, I'm going to talk about marriage because I've been married for 5 years, and I'm by all means no expert, right? Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, everyone that is married longer than 5 years is like, oh, what a baby. You guys are so cute. But the reality of this is this. I have marriage counseling. I feel distant from my husband. We talk about, I believe God can heal my marriage. I believe that we can get closer as a couple. I believe it. But if you're not willing to actually self-empty yourself, humble yourself, take steps towards, a simple step would be getting a counselor, a marriage counseling, speaking with your pastor, speaking to an individual in your church that you're like, they're a little ahead of you, and they said, you know what, something about your marriage is something that I want to mirror. Something that I want to follow. What is it that you did or what is it that you do to make that relationship whole? To make sure that your relationship is close. It was kind of cool this last week. I was doing some construction work. We're doing some little construction work on our house, and our neighbors are helping and, with some pay, obviously. But, that's the thing is that our neighbors, and they work together. They are constantly working together, And it's awesome, this husband and wife. And I asked them, I was like, dude, your guys' relationship's so cool. I was like, that's awesome that you guys literally can hang out with each other all day long. And they both said, and they think they've been married for 17, 18 years. And they said, they're like, dude, marriage counseling, let me tell you, they're not even believers. And just knowing that practical step of obedience, of knowing that, like, okay, we thought we figured it out, and that was their biggest step, was like, yeah, we thought we had it all figured out. Like, oh, I know you. You love me. I love you type of thing. This is cool. We're going to make this work. But actually taking a step of counseling, they're like, it's amazing. I'll recommend it to anybody. I know the person's name. And now they can hang out and they can talk and they can actually dialogue with each other. That would be a step of humility when it comes to planting, because when you let go of the planting, you let it plant, that's the first step of humility, saying that I'm not in control, Lord, you are. Now, the other thing is that, like, where do you plant it? What soil? What kind of soil are you planting it? Are you planting it in your own philosophy? I was telling someone this week, I have no desire to be a philosopher. I have no desire to be an educator. I have no desire to be that at all. What I want to be is to show you willingness. Willingness to listen to God, hear from God, and do it in obedience. What does that look like? Between me and you guys get to see it on obviously on the platform, but that's what I've had to live like. And so I don't want to educate myself in a book. I want to educate myself in God's presence. And so that's where I'm like, I want to hear God's voice. So if God said, hey, you realize that area that you need to plant and you need to let go of, I'm letting you go. I need you to let go of that area and plant it and let me take care of it. So if you're one of these people that you're like, hey, I know I have a lot of faith, DJ, I think I want to, you have to teach God, and this is the individual. I don't know what it looks like for you to let go. It may look like stepping out and talking to someone. I don't know. Maybe it's also you just saying, Jesus, what does it look like for me to let go? And he's going to speak to you. If you're really willingness, and your willingness is to hear God's voice, he'll speak to you. I know he will, either through someone, through his word, or through his presence. Another thing is, next step, which I believe is the hardest step, you need to wait. After you planted, I think this is the hardest step, by the way. You can go to the next slide there, Jake. You need to wait. So after you have let it go and you're letting it, okay, God, I'm going to let you grow it, okay? And I need to step away. I need to trust you. A lot of times that looks like silence. Do I not need to talk about it anymore, DJ? Do I need to talk about it as much? Well, maybe sometimes God's saying, hey, do you really trust me? Or do you always have to constantly ask me questions? He can comfort you, but a lot of times it's like, okay, I trust you, Lord, that you're going to do what you said you're going to do, the good work, the promising, the gift, whatever that is. I'm going to plant it, because if I truly let go of it, and I really trust you, Lord, and I trust you in this season, which is going to be hard, because what you don't see is everything that's happening underneath the soil. And it's phenomenal. I mean, obviously, we live in an agricultural, area, so everyone knows what the seed, and then we plant it, and then it grows. But what happens is that we can't force it to grow. Just because, I prayed harder, when God's like, no, I'm going deeper, though. So your prayer may not look outward, it may look inward. And so what I'm doing is I'm developing self-control, I'm developing patience, I'm developing hope, I'm developing love, I'm developing a peace that you've never experienced before. Because this is what happens, and this is what God can see, bigger picture. This is what he does. Before he can really grow it, this is what he has to do. He has to do the roots first. He has to dig them deep. This last week I was digging some holes, some post holes. And my dad was like, how are you going to dig those post holes? And I was like, well, just by hand. He's like, go buy a post hole digger. And I was like, no, that's a lot of money. He's like, okay, I'll pay you back because I need one. I was like, Dad, when do you need it? And he's like, well, you never know. So he decided to let me go buy one. He sent me a check in the mail, and he had me pay for a post hole. And if you've ever dealt with one of those post hole diggers, man, they can get out of hand real fast, especially when you hit a rock, hard dirt, or a root. And so anyways, there's a tree that's a little distant away from where I was digging, and I was like, I know there's a possibility, but I'm like, I wonder if that's the chance where I'm just right by it. Man, it'd be so great. Man, it took hold of me and just knocked me in the leg real good. I was like, ooh, that was good. So I had to dig it out by hand, and I had to cut out that root. And what was interesting, it was like this. This is what the picture that God gave me this last week while I was doing this and digging it, and I was taking out this root. I had no fear that the tree was going to topple over because I was taking out this little root. So this is what happens. The enemy loves to dig, loves to go after one of your roots, loves to go after, you're like, oh, I have patience. He's going to go after your patience. oh, I have self-control. He's going to start going after self-control. But this is what's cool, is that because he's developing in this seed, when you planted that seed and he's letting go, he's actually developing the fruit of the Spirit, which allows you to have the patience, the self-control, the endurance, all these different things, the love and all that stuff. And so when you take out the root, when it's under attack, you're like, you know what? I know because my roots are developed in some other area, even though this is a weakness. This is a hard time. I'm getting attacked right now. I can trust that God is still not going to let me topple over. That's the thing that we can say. That's why when you only have one root, I'm just going to develop in patience. God's like, don't think so. I think we're going to develop in more. And so when you think it's going to just do the simplicity of just, okay, I just need to work on patience. God's like, no. Trust me. Daughter, son, I'm going to take care of all of it. So that when you get through it, when you go through that storm, and when Satan's attacking you, you'll be like, I'm good. God is still good. God is still good. He's still faithful. That's what we can do. Last step is you need to encourage. The last one. And if you want to turn on some of that music. So today, this is what I want to do. Is that when I was praying and I was trying to figure out like how this message was going to come out. And this is the three areas I believe. This is the last one, which is encourage. Which obviously it's the ones that planted. You let it go so it could grow. You waited. The years, the months, all that time. The doubt that you worked through, that when it starts to reap, man, now you can encourage. Isn't that the gospel? The gospel says that we go and share by the power of our testimony something that we lived. So when people look at your life and they go, what's different about you? They say, you're like, hey, I had to plant. I had to let go of some things so that God could do a work that I could not see, but I had to believe. There was a hope that I had to believe in. I had to lean on. I had to do these things. I had to allow Him to water it. I had to let Him do the things so that I could reap it, so I can encourage you today. That is the gospel. That is the hope that we can lean on. That is Jesus right there. That is Jesus right there. So when people are like, I can't deny what you're saying, because it is Jesus. So if today's message, and this is what it is, when you're in the encourager stage, you realize, oh wow, that's your hope. I need to go plant some more. I need to go wait some more so that I have a harvest, that I have an encouragement, that I have a tree. So in the droughts, in the times where I'm like, man, I can still encourage. I can still move. And this is what it is, okay? So this last like couple weeks, and we're going to have a time of silence. That's why I have the music as it is silence. No words. And there's going to be ample opportunity for us to sit and soak. Because Jesus is saying, you know what? I think there's a lot of individuals here that don't know my voice. They think they do, but they don't. And so this is what I was kind of convicted on, because I was like, God's like, DJ, I need you to be kingdom-minded and kingdom-focused. Because we have a society, as you guys know, where it's like you say if you're red, you're Republican. If you're blue, you're an extreme Democrat. You're an extreme Republican. We have, if you say no to injustice and to justice, and we have these different things, and we're like, man, I want to go fight. I want to go do this. And God's like, hey, this is what I have. Because I didn't say fix your eyes on the political system. I said fix your eyes on the one who created everything, who works through everything, who created you. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Have the kingdom minded. Because through the political system, throughout the injustices, I can see the soul. I can see the eternity. I can see that because he's like, let my Holy Spirit convict them, because I'm the one that's going to be poking at them. I'm going to be the one that's pressing in on them. I'm going to be the one that's reminding them, saying, that is not of me, daughter. That is not of me, son. This is who I am. This is my kingdom. This is my love. This is my peace. And that's what I would encourage you today, is that when you are speaking and when you're about to say something, make sure that it's kingdom. Not saying that you're better, it's because you're more focused. You're focused on the one that actually created everything, the one that is working through everything. He's the one that's still being the silent. He's still saying, hey, in that small little mustard seed, I'm going to move mountains. I'm going to do things that you don't know that I have. I'm seeing the future. I'm seeing the 20 years ahead of here. I'm doing something. I'm doing a good work. But they're listening. They're not hearing me. And about a month ago, I got woken up about 3 o'clock in the morning. Could not go back to sleep. Hate when that happens. And he just took me to Revelations. And you're like, wow, DJ, that's pretty intense. Yeah, talking about the Antichrist and the many to come. I'm not trying to here to freak you out, but this is the scripture that took me to, is that the many who believe will turn away. And that wrecked me. Knowing that individuals that know the goodness of God will walk away at a drop of a hat when something else sounds prettier, something that looks better. But this is how I know. This is how I know they'll walk away. Because they forgot the good shepherd's voice. It says the sheep know the good shepherd by his voice. And so during this time, in this uncertainty, are we sitting to listen? Not to give God opinions, but to listen, to actually hear what he has to say. Are we listening? Do you know his voice? So that when all the commotion's going on, say, that's not you. That's not my God. That's not him. Because Christianity's under attack. It's only going to get harder, not easier, believer. So you have to be certain that it's his voice that's moving you and that his voice has encouraged you, and that's why it's important to you when you're planting in God, say, trust me. Let go so I can grow it. And in that waiting, you're filtering out the things that are not of him and the things that are of him so that you can be the ones that are encouraging. And so today, I'm going to do something that's a little bit different because I can't do that because the pastor's not here. We're going to do something a little different. And I'm going to allow, because that's what I felt the Holy Spirit say, allow time for me to speak to the individual, to identify, to let them ask the question, Lord, is this you? So I have a simple prayer. This whole thing is simple. It says, Jesus, help me to take the step to plant the seed of faith. Give me hope and assurance that I am not waiting for nothing. Open my eyes to encourage the ones that need it. That is the simplicity. And I don't want you to be on your phones. Sound like a youth pastor. Don't be on your phones. Don't be distracted by your neighbor. And I'm going to open up even the altar. And this thing is that it says that